Welcome back, friends. The show, Your Real Estate Today. Paul Jamison here, your host with Jamison Realty, Jamison Property Management, and Jamison Property Investments, and the new original name, Jamison Property Maintenance. How about that?
Oh.
That's right. Just another daggum tax return to do. Anyway, we're glad you're with us. I'm here with Preston Sandlin, my good friend with Home Inspection Carolina. Hello, Preston.
Hey, Paul. Glad to be in, TJ. How are you guys doing today? Thanks for having me.
We're good. We're happy. He's nodding his head, going, "Yeah, man, thumbs up." So anyway, let's talk about something, Preston. That look now you have brought many innovating things to the real estate world. You've brought the walk and talk. You have brought different forms of inspection reports, that you have different kinds of warranties around appliances, and you have all kinds of very innovative things that you do. But one of the key things that you started doing years ago was talking about pre-inspections. And as the inventory in our market gets older, what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, pre-inspections, it's a great idea. It's being proactive instead of reactive. Because, Paul, as you know, what happens in a normal transaction, there's a financial compromise, right? Buyer goes up a little bit, seller comes down. There's a little back and forth. Both people compromise. And then you have the inspection. And sometimes that inspection might involve a new roof, new furnace, new something that has financial implications. So neither person wants to compromise again. They felt like they've already done all they can do. And I've always said, why don't we do that inspection before we have the great compromise? So that way we know about that new roof or new furnace. So we either build that into our negotiation, we get it repaired, we get multiple estimates, whatever. It's just, I always felt like the inspection happened at the wrong time. It should happen before the financial compromise, not after, in my mind. But so you're talking about a pre-listing inspection. When the house is listed, it's on the market, let's go ahead and get it inspected. Now, the drawback on that has always been, well, who's going to pay for that? Sellers like, I don't want to pay for that. You want me to pay for this guy to come out and call my baby ugly? And then, then I'm going to have to pay for repairs and all that stuff too. I don't want to pay for
Plastic
that.
surgery, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I've had some realtors actually tell me, I don't want to know. I don't want to know about the stuff. I don't want, and I'm like, it's going to come out anyway. Don't you want to know before you have your negotiation? I mean, you're in denial. That river in Africa. So I've always said, well, how could we overcome this objection? Well, what if we could offset the cost? And I got the idea from Carfax. I bought a car from West Virginia. It's about 2 years ago. I never even saw it, Paul. I just saw it online, and I bought the Carfax, which was the inspection report, and I haven't sent it to me. I got a way better deal. And I bought the report. And I thought, well, what if we could buy the buyer could buy the report and that money go back to the seller? So that's what we do. I mean, we have it. I mean, you can do anything you want. You can do a normal pre-inspection, which is still a good idea. But we also have a program where you can do a pre-inspection. We put the report online, and every time the report's sold for $19.95, you get that $19.95. I think it's less, like $1 service charge or transaction or something, but most of it. Now the most we've ever sold a report was 9 times, I think. So it's not, that's like what, $180 basically, which didn't fully pay for a $450 inspection, but it probably paid for about half of it. So it did offset the cost. But offset the cost, be proactive and keep the deal from blowing up, making it bulletproof, like the great Gary Keller used to say. And, also find out all the people who are interested, and you can follow up with them. Everybody who buys that report, you can follow up and help sell that house.
Yeah. That's a super innovative idea, but for the buyer, it gives you peace of mind as you put due diligence money on the table, right? The real key for me has always been, and I'm glad you bring up that perspective, because my eye's always been focused on the seller, in being able to handle an unforeseen issue prior to being on the market or prior to it being called out in a real estate transaction, and having control over being able to get bids, getting repair work done at your discretion versus the discretion of the buyer.
Yeah, I mean, with a pre-inspection, Paul, you find out about that roof or that furnace, you can get multiple contractors out there to give you multiple bids.
Or
You know,
your
just like
insurance company.
yeah, 100%. You're not under these rush charges or whoever the buyer brings who
Mhm.
has the same last name as they do. It gives you a really high estimate. You know, oh yeah, that furnace costs $30,000. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious here, but
Yeah, 29 is be more
yeah,
reasonable. That's true. All
and you
right.
could have got it fixed for 7.
So along that same vein, let's talk for a minute around empty houses. You know, I recently, as a matter of fact, we close on the 20th. Can't wait. I'm getting ready to sell a unit that had been vacant for 3 years. 3 years with no utilities, no water, no nothing flowing through that. That's not healthy for a house to be empty, is it?
No, no. When a house is empty, I mean, there's so many things. First of all, you need airflow in the house. You know, if the air's not on, or I recommend if you got an empty house, leave the air and heat on, put it on conservative settings. But you need airflow because that moisture, whatever, that can lead to the M word that rhymes with sold that nobody wants to say, and creates a whole lot of problems. The other problem with the empty house is nobody's using the water fixtures and whatnot. And you have different washers and gaskets, and you know what happens is if they're not used somewhat, they tend to dry out. I don't know if you've ever had a bicycle that you didn't ride for a long time in the garage, and then you went to ride it one day and the tires are all rotten. And that honestly just came from not being used. And that happens to rubber if it's not rubber needs a little use. So it's a lot healthier for air to be run, water to be run, a little bit of usage. And if the house is vacant, it leads to problems.
Yeah, it really does. And I think also, when you walk into these homes, the smell,
Yeah.
in and of itself, because that air's not moving, there's always a distinct odor. And I'm not saying it's like a dead body odor, but it's a mildewy kind of.
Oh, it's a big turnoff. I mean, it's a big
Yeah,
turnoff. I mean, even
exactly.
for me, and I'm used to it, and I'm an investor like you. I have a pretty low threshold, but man, I walk into it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
does it smell like the potpourri?
It just smells like eau de commode sometimes,
Yeah.
because when that P trap really starts stinking, when you don't run water through it, that's nasty, man.
Funny you should mention that. I have a little art studio, room above the garage over here that I use for art or whatever. And there's a bathroom in there, Paul. But so anyway, there's a bathroom. There's also a shower in it. I never use that shower. And every so often, probably about twice a year, oh my gosh, there's like this sewer smell in there. And I'm like, what? And what it is, exactly what you just said. There's a P trap underneath there. And if you don't use it, eventually that water evaporates out of the P trap. So now there's nothing to block that sewer gas from coming back up your drain. So the fix for it's pretty simple. You just run some water and let it fill back up. But yeah, I know it. It's almost like clockwork.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what a P trap is, we're not talking about something that traps urinary excrement. We're talking about a pipe that is at the drain, which holds moisture to stop the sewer gas smell from coming back up. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. It's basically a drain, and it just goes down and back up and then out. So water stays in the bottom of that all the time, and that blocks the sewer gas from coming back up through
Right.
your drain.
Right.
But it can dry out if it's not used. If they don't vent it properly, they make it where it siphons it back out and like an S trap, which you don't want. But P trap, yeah, it just basically keeps water between the sewer and your drain to block it from the gas coming up.
Blocks the stanky. That's for sure. All right. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about the most common things he sees, pipes freezing, ooh, and today's code versus yesteryear hyphened. We'll be right back to Show Your Real Estate Today. News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT.